After the wedding, my daughter-in-law came to my house with a man holding papers. She said, "We just sold this house. You're moving to a nursing home." I smiled and said, "Great idea. But first, let's stop at the police station. They really want to talk to you about the papers I sent them." Before I go on, I want to thank you for listening to my story. If you want, you can tell me where you're from and what time it is there. Now, let me tell you everything. The wedding was like a fairy tale. There were roses the color of champagne, soft music, and lots of people whispering nice things. It was held in a big garden, so fancy that the cost of just going inside could have paid my house taxes for a whole year. I sat in the front row, watching my son, Soren. He stood tall at the altar, his eyes locked on the woman walking toward him. Her name was Sarah, and she looked like a picture from a magazine. Her white dress sparkled, and her smile was as shiny and perfect as the huge diamond on her ring. Everyone thought she was amazing. My cousin Pearl leaned close and whispered, "Oh, Alara, he looks so happy. She's just like a dream, isn't she?" I smiled and nodded, but deep inside, I didn't see a dream. I saw a queen walking into her new castle, ready to take over everything. For 47 years, the house on Palmer Street was my home. It was more than just bricks and wood. It was like a photo album full of memories. I could still see my husband Caspian sitting in his favorite chair by the fireplace, his laughter echoing in the rooms. I could see pencil marks on the pantry door, showing how tall Soren grew each year. This house wasn't just a building. It was a treasure chest of love. When Soren first brought Sarah home, I noticed the way she moved around the house. She walked slowly, her eyes studying everything. She touched the family pictures on the fireplace and said sweet things about how Caspian and I looked in them. But I could see she wasn't really looking at us. She was looking at the fancy furniture, the big grandfather clock, the Persian rug, and the pretty crown molding. She looked like someone planning an auction, not a daughter joining a family. 2 weeks after that wedding, the house felt different. It was too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Something was coming. I sat in Caspian's chair, holding a cup of chamomile tea that had gone cold, and thought about the last few months. Soren had changed. My son, who used to be simple and hardworking, was now acting like someone else. He used to be happy running the construction company his father built from nothing. The company, Vance and Son Construction, wasn't just a name. It was our family's pride. But Sarah was changing him. Now he wore expensive suits and talked about big deals and expanding the company. He sounded like a stranger, like a boy pretending to be a businessman. Sarah was clearly the one in charge. She spoke of ambition and growth, but I wondered what she was willing to destroy to get her way. I had a bad feeling about her. It was always there, like a buzzing sound in the back of my head. I noticed how she corrected Soren in front of people, how her smile never seemed real when she looked at me, and how she seemed to take all the attention wherever she went. This wasn't a happy new bride. This was a woman with a plan. And that plan, I knew deep in my heart, included taking my home. Every month, Caspian and I had a special tradition. On the third Tuesday of every month, we would sit at his big desk in the study and go through all the bills and accounts for the company. He checked the supplier bills, and I managed payroll and balanced everything. It was our way of staying close and keeping our business strong. After Caspian died, I kept doing it. Soren wasn't good at this stuff. He cared more about building than paperwork. So I helped protecting his father's business and our family's future. One Tuesday, I sat down in the leather chair that still smelled like Caspian. The room smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. I turned on the computer and started checking everything, just like always. At first, everything looked fine. Payments to the lumber yard, invoices from electricians, checks for the roofing team. It all looked normal. Then I saw it. A wire transfer for $25,000. My heart skipped a beat. We never used wire transfers. Caspian liked using checks because they left a clear paper trail. This transfer was sent to a company called Apex Digital Logistics. I frowned. We were a construction company. We built houses, not packages. I clicked for more details. There was an authorization code, but no matching invoice. I dug through the messy stack of papers Soren had given me. I flipped through every receipt, every bill, every note. Nothing. There was no proof this company even existed. A cold feeling spread in my stomach. This wasn't a mistake. This was a secret. At first, I thought maybe Soren was in trouble. Was he being blackmailed? Did he owe someone money? But none of it made sense. Soren wasn't dishonest. He would never hide something like this from me, especially about his father's company. Then a darker thought came to me. Sarah. Sarah, the woman who was amazing with money. Sarah, who was now running things. I remembered how weeks earlier she sat at this very desk, her laptop open, while Soren proudly explained our accounting system. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now I realized she was studying everything like a spy. I searched deeper on the computer. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. I checked the user logs, and there it was. Someone had made a new account 3 weeks ago with full access. The username? Sarah. The logs showed she logged in many times, late at night when Soren was asleep. And that $25,000 transfer? She sent it at 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday. This wasn't a mistake. This was war. I couldn't just yell at her. That would make me look crazy. I needed to be calm and smart. I decided to act like a queen, quiet and strong, like Caspian's wife should be. I waited until Sunday dinner. They always came over every Sunday, and Sarah insisted on it. Now I knew why. She wanted to keep an eye on me. I cooked Caspian's favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and onions, mashed potatoes, and collard greens. The house smelled warm and safe, even though my heart was racing. They walked in looking like models. Soren wore a crisp polo shirt, and Sarah wore a cream sweater that probably cost more than my monthly budget. She kissed the air near my cheek and said sweetly, "Elara, this smells amazing. You're such a treasure." Her words were as smooth and empty as glass. We sat in the dining room, eating and talking. Sarah talked about a fancy charity event she was planning. Soren talked about a big project he was bidding on. I stayed quiet, waiting for my moment. It came at dessert. I served my homemade peach cobbler, and Soren smiled as he tasted it. "This is incredible, Mom," he said. "Some things are too good to change," I said softly. Then I added, "Speaking of which, I was looking over the company accounts this week." I saw Sarah's smile tighten just a little. "Oh yeah, everything okay?" Soren asked. "Apex," I said. Soren frowned. "I don't think I know them." Before he could say more, Sarah touched his arm and laughed. "Oh, that's just me streamlining things, Mom," she said sweetly. "It's a company that handles all our digital systems and cloud stuff. Very boring, trust me." She turned to Soren and said, "Honey, your mom built a great system for her time, but we need to modernize. Apex is helping us." Soren's face relaxed. He looked at me with a soft smile. "See, Mom, I told you she's a genius. You don't have to worry about it." Those words stung. Don't worry your head about it. It felt like a pat on the head, like I was being pushed aside. I looked at Sarah. Her smile was calm, but her eyes said she had won. She had turned my real concern into a silly old woman's fuss. I couldn't argue without looking crazy. So I smiled. "Well, that's wonderful, dear. As long as someone understands it." I took a bite of cobbler, the sweetness sharp on my tongue. Inside, I felt ice-cold anger. They thought they had dismissed me, but I wasn't done. I was just beginning. A queen doesn't cry when she's pushed off the throne. She goes back to her room and plans her next move. The next morning, I could still hear Sarah's sweet but mean voice in my head. "It's all very complicated. You wouldn't understand." She thought I was just an old lady who lived in the past, someone who couldn't understand how things work today. But that was her biggest mistake. I may have grown up with black and white TVs and old-fashioned phones, but I knew that lies never changed. A lie was still a lie, no matter how fancy the words were. And if I wanted to fight someone clever, I needed something strong too. I didn't plan to fight her by yelling or arguing with Soren, my son. That would only push him closer to her side. No, I needed proof. Hard, clear, unshakable proof. My husband, Caspian, and I were never big spenders, but we were careful with money. We had saved up a secret rainy day fund, a savings account we kept in another bank, separate from the company. We had planned to use it for emergencies, or maybe a trip to Europe we never got to take. After Caspian died, I never touched that money. It just sat there, quietly growing with interest. That money was a gift from Caspian, and now it was time to use it. I put on my nicest clothes, a navy blue dress, simple shoes, and the pearl necklace Caspian gave me for our 25th anniversary. I needed to look like what I truly was, a strong, respectable woman, not a scared old lady. The night before, I had searched the internet for hours, reading reviews, and finding a company that was good at catching people stealing from businesses. The company's head was an older man, but the person who answered my email was a young man named Iago Sterling. When I stepped into Iago's office, I understood why he had answered. He was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a sharp suit. He looked like he noticed everything around him. He seemed smart, very smart. I didn't waste any time with small talk. I sat down, opened my handbag, and placed a folder on his desk. "Mr. Sterling," I said clearly, "I'm the widow of Caspian Vance, the man who started Vance and Son Construction. My son Soren runs the company now. I still look at the finances sometimes." I paused to let him take in my words. "Last week, I found something strange, a payment of $25,000 to a fake company. My new daughter-in-law gave herself special access to our company's bank accounts, and she sent that money. I think she's stealing from us." Iago's eyebrows went up. His eyes changed from doubtful to focused. He leaned forward, very interested. "A fake company?" he asked. "Yes," I said, handing him another paper. "It's called Apex Digital Logistics. It has no business license, no office, no workers. Its website was made just 3 weeks ago using a free site. Sarah says they are a company we pay for digital services, but I think she's lying." Iago studied the paper carefully. Then he smiled, a slow, impressed smile. It was like he had just realized I wasn't a beginner at this game. "Mrs. Vance," he said with respect, "you've already done half my job for me." I handed him a paper showing my savings account balance. "I want you to do the other half," I said firmly. "I want you to check every single dollar that's been spent in the company for the past 6 months. I want you to do this quietly. My son doesn't know I'm here, and he's very much in love with his wife." Iago looked at my bank statement and then at me. "This will be expensive," he warned. I looked him straight in the eye. "My husband's legacy is worth more than money. Mr. Sterling, I want the truth." He closed the folder and shook my hand. This handshake felt different. It was strong and full of trust. "Consider it done, Mrs. Vance," he said. I left the office feeling lighter than I had in months. The storm was coming, but I had started building my boat. Caspian had built a strong company, but Sarah had been whispering to Soren, telling him they needed to think bigger, that they needed to be a brand, not just builders. Iago and I spoke every day, pretending he was my nephew calling to check on me. He gave me small, careful updates. He was following the trail of Sarah's tricks, and every day he found more. Then one Tuesday, Iago called me, and his voice was serious. "Anna Lara," he said, using our code name for me, "you need to come in. The audit is showing something big." An hour later, I was sitting in his clean, bright office. A cup of coffee sat on the desk, but I didn't touch it. Iago looked tired, but his eyes were glowing with excitement. He pushed a thick report across the desk toward me. "Mrs. Vance," he said softly, "you were right. And it's worse than you thought." For the next hour, he showed me everything. The $25,000 Sarah sent was just the beginning. It was her test to see if anyone was watching. When no one noticed, she grew bolder. Iago had found many other fake companies with names like Innovate Solutions Group and Synergy Capital Ventures. Over the past 4 months, Sarah had sent hundreds of thousands of dollars to these fake companies. She was making up fake bills for fake work. Iago pointed to a number in red ink, $278,000. "Your daughter-in-law has stolen this much so far," he said seriously. I felt sick. This was money meant for the workers, for new equipment, for Soren's future. Sarah had used it to buy fancy clothes, a sports car, and first-class vacations. She was living a rich life using our company's hard-earned money. But Iago wasn't done. He turned to another section of the report. "This," he said quietly, "is even worse." The next pages showed bank loans. Sarah had taken out huge loans in the company's name. $50,000, $75,000, $150,000. A total of $275,000 in debt. And none of this money went to the company. She had taken the loan money and sent it to her fake companies too. These loans needed Soren's signature, I whispered. Yago nodded and flipped to the next page. There were pictures of the signatures side by side, one real and one fake. She forged them, Yago said flatly. She copied your son's signature. She's been practicing. These forgeries are very good. I stared at my son's name, perfectly copied, used like a weapon. My heart felt like it stopped. This wasn't just stealing. She was setting Soren up to take the blame. When the loans weren't paid back, the banks would blame him. The police would accuse him. Sarah was planning to send my son to jail and walk away rich. Anger burned inside me like fire. Before, I had been angry about the stolen money. But this was much worse. She was trying to ruin my son's life. A mother's love is powerful, and a mother's anger is even stronger. Sitting in that office, I made a promise to myself. Sarah had started this fire, but I was going to make sure she was the one who got burned. I walked out of Yago's office into the bright afternoon sun, but everything around me felt gray and heavy. My mind was full of terrible thoughts. I kept thinking about lies, fake papers, and stolen money. There were fake companies and stolen futures. I drove home without even thinking about the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The image of Soren's fake signature was stuck in my head. It wasn't just a scribble, it was a symbol of Sarah's hate and disrespect. She had shown me that nothing in our family mattered to her. No person, no memory. Nothing was safe from her evil plans. When I got home, I didn't sit down. I started pacing the house. My footsteps echoed on the wooden floors. I walked through every room like I was on guard. I looked at the living room filled with family pictures, memories she wanted to destroy. I went to the dining room where she had sat before, smiling and lying to my face. I walked into the study, the place where the heart of our family company lived. She wanted to suck all the life out of it. Every room I passed through reminded me of what she wanted to take away from us. I thought I understood her plan. I believed she only wanted to steal money, load the company with debt, and leave Soren to take the blame. That was already horrible, but I was wrong. She had planned something even worse. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was Yago. Ilera, he said. He never used my first name unless it was serious. I knew this was not a normal business call. It was a warning. I found the last piece, Yago said. This is the endgame. I've emailed it to you. You need to look at this right now. My hands trembled as I walked to the study. I opened my email. There was a new message with a single PDF attachment. The subject line said one word, urgent. I clicked on it. It was a legal paper, a power of attorney form, the kind of paper that gave someone total control over another person's life. I scanned the names. The giver was me, Ilera Vance. The agent was Sarah Vance. My stomach dropped. The paper said Sarah had full, permanent control over all my money, my house, and everything I owned. She could sell my home, use my money, and make every decision for me as if I didn't exist. Then I saw something even worse. A paragraph saying I had been declared mentally and medically unable to make decisions for myself. Attached to the paper was a fake letter from a doctor I had never met. It said I had been checked by him and was suffering from serious dementia, a sickness that makes people forget everything and lose their mind. The letter was full of lies, cruel words, and made-up symptoms. It told the court to give control of my life to a trusted family member, Sarah. The signature on the paper looked shaky, like it had been written by an old woman losing her memory. But it wasn't mine. It was another forgery. This was Sarah's kill shot. She didn't just want to steal money. She wanted to erase me. If this worked, she would sell my home, take millions of dollars, and disappear. Soren would be left with a destroyed company and face jail time for fraud. I would be left with nothing. No money, no home, no freedom. I would probably end up locked away in a hospital for people with dementia. No one would believe me because the paper said I was crazy. Sarah wasn't just trying to rob us. She was trying to wipe out the Vance family as if we had never existed. The evil of it made my knees almost give out. For a long time, I just stared at the screen, tears filling my eyes, my heart pounding. But then, slowly, my fear faded away. The sadness faded away. What was left inside me was cold, sharp determination. She thought she had already won. She thought she had ridden me out of my own life. She was wrong. It was time for me to take control and write her ending instead. I sat at Caspian's desk for an hour, staring at the glowing screen with the fake power of attorney. I didn't move. I let the truth sink in and burn away every trace of doubt. She thought I was a pawn, a weak piece she could sacrifice in her evil game. She had no idea that I had been watching every move. I picked up the phone and called Yago. My voice was calm, steady, and strong. "Yago," I said as soon as he answered, "I need you to do 3 things for me. First, print and bind 3 full copies of this entire investigation, every piece of proof. Get them notarized and sealed. Second, write a short, clear summary of your findings. It has to explain everything, from the stolen money to the fake loans to this power of attorney. It must be easy for anyone to understand, but detailed enough for the police to take action. Third, find me the best detective in the city's financial crimes division. Not just any detective. I need a bulldog, the kind of person who never lets go once they bite." Yago didn't waste time asking questions. "Consider it done, Alara," he said firmly. "I'll have everything ready by morning." My second step was to write my own statement. I worked for hours. I wrote down the whole story, from the very first moment I felt something was wrong, to this day when I had proof of her evil. I didn't write like a victim. I wrote like a witness, building a solid wall of truth that no one could break. I described my talks with Sarah, her fake smiles, her lies. I wrote every detail, every date, every fact. As I wrote, I felt like a historian writing about the fall of an evil empire. The pain was still there, but now it was power. I wasn't just Alara Vance, a sad widow. I was the protector of my son, the guardian of my family's name, and the builder of Sarah's downfall. The next morning, a courier arrived with a heavy box from Yago's office. Inside were 3 thick, bound reports, each as big as a phone book. There was also a sealed envelope with the summary letter and the name of the detective Yago recommended, Detective Thora Beck. The bulldog. I called her right away. She listened to me silently, her voice sharp and serious. "Where are you now, Mrs. Vance?" she asked. "I'm at my home," I replied, "and I'm ready to show you everything." I had loaded the cannon. It was time to fire. At the police station, Detective Thora led me through a noisy office full of detectives. She took me into a small, cold room with a metal table and 3 chairs. It was meant to make people feel small, but I wasn't afraid. She closed the door. "Mrs. Vance," she said, "you made some very serious claims over the phone. Why don't you start from the beginning?" Instead of speaking, I pulled one of the thick reports out of my bag. I placed it on the table with a loud thud. "I think it's better if I start from the end," I said. "That is a complete investigation of my family company, Vance and Son Construction. It shows the theft of $278,000 and another $275,000 in fake loans, all done by my daughter-in-law, Sarah Vance." Detective Thora raised her eyebrows and opened the report. She scanned Yago's neat summary, flipping through charts of bank transfers and fake companies. She didn't speak for a long time, her face unreadable. When she finally looked up, I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't just a file anymore. This was a real crime. "Federal loan documents," she said slowly, her voice heavy. "That's serious. That's prison time." "I'm not done," I said calmly. I handed her my own written statement and a copy of the fake power of attorney. "This is her final plan," I said. "She made this paper with a fake doctor's letter saying I'm mentally ill. She wants to sell my house, take all my money, and leave my son facing jail time. She wants me homeless and locked away." For a second, Detective Thora's face changed. I saw anger flash in her eyes. "She was going to have you committed," she growled, her voice low and dangerous. It wasn't a question. "That's right," I said. Thora closed the report, leaned back, and looked at me carefully. She wasn't seeing a helpless woman anymore. She saw a fighter, a partner. "Mrs. Vance," Detective Thora said, her voice now serious but full of respect. You have built a very strong case. The district attorney will love this. Your evidence is very clear and carefully collected. This is one of the best pre-investigation files I've ever seen. So, what do we do next? She asked, her sharp eyes looking straight at me. I could get a warrant and arrest her today. But has she tried to use the power of attorney yet? No, I said. I think she's waiting for the right time. She believes I don't know anything. A sly smile spread across Detective Thora's face. It was like the smile of a hunter who had spotted her prey and knew she could catch it completely. Then we won't arrest her today, she whispered, leaning closer to me. Her voice dropped so low it sounded secretive. We're going to let her walk right into our trap. And you, Mrs. Vance, will be the bait. In that cold, plain office, a bond was formed. We were two very different women, a detective and a widow, but we shared the same goal. We were going to let Sarah Vance think she was winning, only to take everything away from her at the last moment. Leaving the 12th precinct felt like walking out of a war room after a battle plan had been made. The plan was clear, the steps were set, but knowing what to do and actually doing it were two very different things. My job in Detective Thora's plan sounded simple, but it was the hardest thing I had ever been asked to do. I had to go home and act completely normal. I had to pretend nothing was wrong. I had to act like I didn't know that the woman my son loved was trying to destroy my life. I had to become the best actress in the world, pretending to be a warm and loving mother-in-law, while secretly knowing a snake was living in my home. The days after that were full of tension. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. Every unexpected knock at the door made me feel like something bad was about to happen. I felt like a soldier hiding in a trench, waiting for an attack I knew was coming, but I didn't know when or where. The real test came on Sunday. As usual, Soren and Sarah came over for dinner. Sarah walked through my front door looking as beautiful and charming as ever. She gave me a bouquet of expensive lilies, a flower often used at funerals, which made me feel bitter inside, and kissed my cheek. Ma Elera, you look wonderful, she said sweetly, her voice like honey. I smiled, though it felt heavy and fake on my face. It's so good to see you both, I said calmly, hiding all my anger and fear. The evening felt strange, almost unreal. I served roasted chicken and sweet potatoes. I moved calmly between the kitchen and dining room, even though I felt nervous inside. I listened carefully as Sarah told a story about a contractor she worked with. She spoke like she respected my late husband's company, even though I knew she was secretly trying to destroy it. It just makes me appreciate the foundation Caspian built all the more, she said, placing her hand lovingly on Soren's. It's a legacy worth protecting. Her boldness was so shocking I nearly choked on my iced tea. I remember Detective Thora's warning, don't let her know you're suspicious. Let her think she's in complete control. The more confident she feels, the harder she'll fall. So, I nodded, smiled, and even gave her advice about dealing with difficult people, acting like an older woman with no idea of Sarah's plans. Soren, sweet and innocent, was so happy. He thought his wife and his mother were getting along perfectly. His laughter filled the dining room, but each laugh felt like a knife to my heart. I was lying to him, too, but I knew I had to lie. I had to protect him from the truth, a truth so terrible it would break his heart. My silence was an act of love, the hardest act of love I had ever done. After dinner, Sarah followed me into the kitchen while I was clearing plates. You know, Ma Lara, she said in a soft, casual voice, this big house must be hard for you to manage alone. All the cleaning, the stairs, the garden, it's so much work. My back was to her as I washed a plate. I forced myself to stay calm, even though her words made me alert. It keeps me busy, I said, keeping my voice even. Of course, she said, stepping closer. But you deserve to rest. You should enjoy your golden years without all this stress. Soren and I have been talking. We've been looking at some wonderful senior communities, places with fun activities, delicious meals, and medical care right there on site. You'd be so well taken care of. There it was, her first move. She was pretending to be kind, but really, she was trying to get me out of my own house. She was planting the idea, testing me, seeing if I'd agree to leave. I turned off the water, dried my hands, and slowly faced her. I looked into her eyes, searching for any real care, but all I saw was cold ambition. I gave her a small, tired smile. "That's very thoughtful of you to think of me, dear," I said softly, pretending to sound weak. "But this is my home. I'm not ready to leave it yet." The attack came 3 days later. It was a gray Tuesday morning. The sky was cloudy and looked like it might rain, though it didn't. I was in the kitchen kneading dough for cinnamon bread. The familiar motion calmed me, though my nerves were on edge. I had been waiting for this moment for days. The silence felt heavy, like something bad was about to happen. Then I saw it through the window. A sleek black car I didn't recognize parked in front of my house. My hands froze in the dough. My heart, which had been racing with anxiety for days, suddenly slowed. This was it. The doorbell rang, sharp and loud. It didn't sound friendly. I wiped my flour-covered hands on my apron, took a deep breath, and went to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Sarah. She was wearing a sharp white pantsuit, looking like a general about to take over enemy territory. Next to her stood a short, nervous man clutching a leather briefcase tightly. His eyes darted around nervously, and I could tell he was in over his head. This had to be the notary. I opened the door. "Sarah," I said with fake surprise. "I wasn't expecting you." She walked into my house confidently, as if she already owned it. She motioned for the man, Mr. Finchley, to sit on the couch. He perched there nervously while Sarah stayed standing, looking powerful and smug. I stood across from her, my hands folded in front of me, pretending to be a weak old woman. "Soren is at the office today, dealing with restructuring," she said easily, lying without hesitation. "He left this matter to me. It's for the best. We have to be practical." Her sharp eyes scanned the room like she was inspecting her new property. Finally, she looked right at me. Her fake smile vanished, replaced by cold determination. This was the moment she had been working toward. She was savoring it. Then she said the words I had been waiting for. "We've just sold this house. You're going to a nursing home." She took a glossy brochure out of her fancy leather bag and placed it on the coffee table. The picture showed an old woman. She looked small, weak, and a little confused. Sarah, my son's wife, stood in my living room with a fake smile. "Soren is at the office, busy with some business problems," she said smoothly. It was a lie, but she said it so easily that you might almost believe her. "He left this matter to me. This is for the best. We need to be practical," she added, her eyes slowly looking around my house as if she was already claiming it. Then her smile disappeared. Her face turned cold, and she looked at me like I was nothing. This was her moment, the one she had been planning for. She wanted to enjoy it. She wanted me to feel small. "We've just sold this house," Sarah said in a sharp voice. "You're going to a nursing home." She reached into her expensive leather bag and pulled out a shiny brochure. She placed it in front of me on the coffee table. On the cover, the words Golden Vista Senior Living were written in happy, curly letters. The picture showed smiling old people playing cards, but I knew it was a trick. This wasn't a happy place. It was a prison for old people like me. "The place is very nice," Sarah continued, her voice now flat and cold. "Your first 3 months are already paid for. The money came from selling this house. A car will come in an hour to take you there. You should pack a small bag with your things." Sarah thought she had won. She thought I was weak and helpless. She believed she had planned everything perfectly. She thought she was smart and that I was just an old, useless woman standing in her way. She couldn't see that she was stepping into a trap that I had set. I looked at the brochure with the smiling faces. Then I looked up at Sarah. For the first time in months, I let her see the strength I had been hiding. The game was not over. The room was silent. Sarah stood tall and proud, waiting for me to cry or beg. She wanted me to break down. Beside her, the notary, Mr. Finchley, played nervously with the latches on his briefcase. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He looked like a scavenger waiting to grab whatever he could after Sarah destroyed me. I let the silence stretch. I let Sarah think she had already won. I picked up the shiny brochure, touched the cheerful words with my fingers, and then set it back down. Slowly, I looked at Sarah and smiled softly. "A nursing home," I said calmly. "That sounds lovely." Sarah's face relaxed. She smiled, but it was a cruel, mocking smile. She thought I had given up. She thought I was a tired old woman who would do as she was told. I knew you'd understand, Ma Lara, she said in a fake sweet voice. It's for your own good. You'll be much happier there. That's when I stood up. I didn't move slowly like she expected. I stood tall and strong. Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment. I walked over to the table by the door and picked up my purse and keys. Perfect, I said, my voice clear and strong. Let's stop at the police station first. They're very interested in what I sent them about you. The air in the room changed instantly. Sarah's face went pale. Her confident smile vanished. She looked confused, then shocked, and finally terrified. Mr. Finchley froze, his hand shaking over his briefcase. What are you talking about? Sarah stammered. Her voice was sharp now, panicked. I'm not playing games, I said firmly. I reached into my purse, but instead of my keys, I pulled out my phone. I held it up so she could see the screen. On it was an email I had sent 3 days ago. It was to Detective Thora from the Financial Crimes Department. The subject read, Evidence of Embezzlement and Forgery at Vance and Son Construction. Attached was a huge 80-page document called the Sarah Vance File. Right then, Sarah's phone rang loudly. She fumbled to answer it with shaking hands. Soren's face was on the screen. She answered, still staring at me. Sarah, what is going on? Soren's worried voice came through the phone. The bank just called. They froze all the accounts. They're talking about a federal fraud investigation. Sarah opened her mouth but couldn't speak. She stared at me like I had turned into someone she didn't recognize. My son is a good man, Sarah, I said calmly, my words sharp and heavy. He loved you, and you tried to destroy him. You tried to steal his company, his freedom, and his mother's home. You thought because I was old, I was stupid. You thought because I was quiet, I was weak. You were wrong. At that exact moment, 2 police cars stopped quietly outside my house. Detective Thora got out, looking calm but powerful, followed by 2 officers. She nodded at me through the window and started walking to my front door. Checkmate. What happened next was quick. Detective Thora walked into my house and arrested Sarah right there on my beautiful Persian rug, the same rug Sarah had once admired while secretly planning to sell it. Mr. Finchley started sweating and quickly offered to help the police. Sarah, who was always calm and confident, broke down completely. She screamed. She cried. She called me a mean old witch who had ruined her life. I didn't say a word. I just stood by the fireplace, calm and quiet, and watched justice finally happen. When Soren arrived a few minutes later, he saw his wife in handcuffs being led away by the police. His face showed deep hurt and shock. He looked completely heartbroken. I opened my arms and hugged him tightly while his world fell apart. 6 months have passed since that day. Sarah didn't fight the case. She took a deal. Now she's in prison for 8 years for fraud and forgery. Everyone in town knows her name, but now they whisper it like a warning, not with respect. Soren is still healing. The betrayal hurt him badly, but he is strong. He has been working hard to save his company. Slowly, things are getting better. The money she stole is being returned, and the company is recovering. But the biggest change is in me. I am not the quiet, passive woman I used to be. I realized a family's legacy is something you protect with courage, not silence. I joined the board of Vance and Son Construction. I became the chief financial officer, the same job I secretly did for 40 years. Now, people respect my voice. They listen to me. I also started something new, the Alara Vance Foundation for Elder Justice. I wanted to help other older people who are being hurt or stolen from, like I almost was. We hold free classes to teach seniors how to protect their money and stay safe. Last week, Soren and I stood together at the opening of our new community office. He whispered, "Dad would be so proud of you, Mom." I looked around at all the smiling faces of neighbors and friends, and I felt proud and strong. I am still Alara Vance, a 72-year-old widow, but I am not weak anymore. I am the queen of my home and my family. I will always protect them. I will always watch for wolves, and I will never let anyone hurt us again.